The year is 335 BC, and rumors of a king's death spark a revolution.
Thebes, a city of ancient glory, prepares to cast off the Macedonian yoke.
Believing the Macedonian king has fallen in battle, the city votes for war. 2 Macedonian officers are slain, and the rebellion becomes an open conflict.
The rumors of his death were premature. The king is alive and moving.
In just 14 days, the army covers over 300 miles of rugged terrain.
They pass through the gates of Greece before any ally can reach Thebes.
The Thebans refuse to believe the king has arrived until his banners are seen. The phalanx stands ready, a wall of spears that changed the face of war. Against them stands the sacred band, defenders of Theban liberty and tradition.
The elite cavalry, the king's companions, wait for the signal to strike.
Even the city's slaves are freed and armed to man the outer walls. Specialist archers and javelineers provide the lethal support the king requires. Allied Greeks, longtime enemies of Thebes, join the assault with vengeful intent. The king offers mercy in exchange for the leaders of the revolt.
Thebes answers with defiance, demanding the king surrender his own commanders.
Without orders, a general leads his men in a sudden, desperate assault. They breach the outer defenses, drawing the entire army into the fray. A fierce counterattack nearly repels the breach as the general falls wounded.
Seeing the danger, the king commits his reserves to shatter the defense. In the turmoil, the city gates are left open, inviting disaster. The trapped garrison breaks out, trapping the defenders in a lethal vise. The battle shifts from the fields to the narrow, bloodless streets.
The elite sacred band fights to the last man, refusing to surrender.
Resistance crumbles as the city is completely overrun by the invaders.
Allied Greeks, fueled by years of hatred, begin the city's destruction. Even the cavalry finds no escape from the closing Macedonian net. Only the house of the poet Pindar is spared by royal decree. The surviving population seeks refuge in the temples of the gods. By sunset, the colors of Macedon fly over the broken city. The king surveys the cost of rebellion in the heart of Greece.
A power that stood for centuries is silenced in a single day.
6,000 lie dead, and the walls of Thebes are razed to the ground.
30,000 survivors are sold into slavery, their city erased from the map.
The destruction of Thebes secures Greece, allowing the king to look toward Persia. The lesson is learned. The era of independent city-states is over.
In the spring of 334 BC, the Macedonian forces cross into the Persian Empire.
Stepping onto the shore, The king symbolically claims the continent as his own.
A detour to the ruins of Troy connects the expedition to the legends of old.
The Persian regional governors gather to decide how to halt the invasion.
The Granicus River becomes the chosen site for the first major confrontation.
The advisor suggests a scorched earth policy to starve the invading army.
The local governors refuse to destroy their own lands and people. The Persian satraps mobilize their elite cavalry to hold the river line.
The Macedonian phalanx, a wall of bronze and pikes, moves into position. Scouts report that the Persians have taken the high ground across the water.
The companion cavalry, the king's personal elite, prepare for the strike.
On the left, the veteran general commands the skilled Thessalian horsemen. The 18-foot sarissa gives the infantry a reach like no other. The Persians place their cavalry on the bank, a move that surprises the invaders. Behind the cavalry, thousands of Greek mercenaries wait for the infantry clash. Light troops and archers move to the front to screen the main assault. From the heights, Persian skirmishers prepare to rain fire on the crossing.
The crossing is dangerous. We should advise caution.
We attack immediately!
The first squadron charges into the river to test the enemy strength. The Persians meet the first wave with a hail of javelins. The king himself leads the elite cavalry into the heart of the river. Combat erupts in the middle of the river as the current pulls at men. The struggle intensifies on the slippery, muddy slopes of the eastern bank. The superior reach of the Macedonian lances begins to tell on the shore. Recognizing his rank, the Persian nobles converge on the king. His lance shattered, the king takes another and continues the fight. In the chaos, a Persian satrap prepares a lethal blow from behind. The officer known as the Black saves the king with a swift strike.
The infantry phalanx now moves into the river to support the cavalry.
Under the pressure of the combined assault, the Persian cavalry begins to break. The Persian center collapses, sending the regional forces into a full retreat.
The Greek mercenaries, abandoned by the Persians, are surrounded on the heights.
The king refuses their surrender, viewing the mercenaries as traitors to Greece.
A brutal slaughter follows as the phalanx grinds through the mercenary line.
As evening falls, the king stands victorious on his first Asian battlefield.
How fares your arm, my friend? Tell me what happened.
It is deep, sire, but I shall live.
25 bronze statues are commissioned to honor the fallen elite cavalry. "300 suits of Persian armor are sent to Athens as an offering."
The victory at Granicus leaves Western Asia Minor open to the invaders.
The year is 333 BC, and the campaign for the east reaches a tipping point.
Rain and cold descent upon the rugged Amanus Mountains as two powers converge.
Geography will dictate the terms of the coming struggle on this narrow plain.
The Macedonian king discovers he has been outmaneuvered and his rear lines cut.
The great king of Persia waits with a host that fills the horizon.
From the heart of Babylon, the great king summons the strength of his empire.
The Macedonian forces push south, unaware that the Persian army is moving behind them.
The great king seizes Issus, capturing the sick and wounded left by the Macedonians.
Sheltered from the storm, the Macedonian king receives word of the Persian presence.
The army turns back, marching through the narrow pass to confront the enemy.
The phalanx forms a wall of timber and bronze, an iron-tipped forest.
At the center of the formation stands a royal guard unit, recorded in historical sources as a core component of the Persian army.
The Persian heavy cavalry masses on the shore, intending to crush the Macedonian flank.
The companion cavalry prepares to lead the strike on the right.
10,000 Greek mercenaries bolster the Persian center, ready for their kinsmen. Thessalian horsemen race to the coast to counter the Persian cavalry threat. In the foothills, Persian Cardasses wait to descend upon the Macedonian right. The Macedonian king inspires his troops as they reach the river's edge.
The armies stand separated by the shallow but slippery waters of the Pinarus. The sky darkens as a barrage of Persian arrows begins the engagement.
Light infantry clears the heights, securing the Macedonian right flank for the charge.
The phalanx enters the water, struggling to keep their formation on the slippery bed.
The Persian-Greek mercenaries exploit a gap, nearly breaking the Macedonian center. On the shore, a massive cavalry duel erupts as the Persian right charges. The Macedonian king leads the decisive charge across the river's right bank.
The Persian left wing is shattered by the speed of the Macedonian charge.
The Macedonian king turns his cavalry to strike the flank of the center.
The royal guard fights to the death to protect their monarch.
The two kings come within sight of one another amidst the carnage.
Fearing capture, the great king's chariot horses bolt in the chaos. The great king abandons the field, signaling the end for his forces.
Relieved of pressure, the phalanx pushes forward to secure the bank. Seeing their king flee, the Persian cavalry on the beach collapses. A general rout begins as the imperial army dissolves into panic.
The pursuit continues into the twilight as the Persian host scatters. The symbols of Persian power are left behind in the mud. The Macedonia army plunders the immense wealth of the Persian camp.
The Macedonian king captures the great king's family,
treating them with respect.
The cost is high, but the road to the heart of Persia is open. The Macedonian king arrives at the impregnable island fortress of Tyre.
The city's walls rise 50 meters high, standing directly out of the sea. When the king's heralds are executed, the siege of Tyre begins in earnest.
Denied a fleet, the king decides to build a bridge to the island. Using debris from the old city, a massive causeway is pushed into the deep. Wooden towers protected by hides provide cover for the builders as they approach.
The Tyrians prepare a lethal fire ship to halt the Macedonian advance.
A brilliant Tyrian counterattack destroys months of Macedonian labor in a single afternoon. The king gathers a superior fleet to seize control of the sea. On land, the veteran phalanx waits for the signal to storm the breach. The Tyrians prepare ingenious and lethal defenses to hold their walls.
Innovating at sea, the Macedonians mount heavy siege engines onto their ships.
The city is completely isolated as the Macedonian fleet seals the harbors. The southern wall begins to buckle under the rhythmic pounding of the rams. A breach is made. The island's isolation is finally broken.
The elite hypaspists lead the charge up the crumbling ruins of the wall.
Though their leader falls, the Macedonians secure a foothold on the battlements.
Simultaneously, the fleet breaks into the harbors, overrunning the Tyrian navy. The defense collapses as the Macedonians flood the streets from all sides. The survivors seek sanctuary in the ancient temple of the city's god.
In a display of ruthless vengeance, 2,000 survivors are executed on the shore.
The king finally offers his sacrifice, marking the end of Phoenician resistance. With Tyre subdued, the gateway to Egypt and the Persian heartland lies open. After the fall of Tyre, the Macedonian king turns his gaze toward the gateway of Egypt.
Gaza stands defiant on a high mound, its walls seemingly unreachable from the desert floor.
The king identifies the southern wall as the point of entry, despite the daunting height.
The governor, Battis, prepares a garrison of 10,000 to block the Macedonian path.
Demand for surrender is met with total defiance. The road to the Nile is closed. The heavy engines of Tyre are summoned by sea to break the desert stronghold.
The engineers begin an impossible task, building a mountain to reach the city's heights.
Within the walls, defenders prepare fire and steel for the coming assault.
The Macedonian infantry brings the disciplice of the phalanx to the desert sands.
Facing them is a diverse coalition of Persian regulars and fierce local mercenaries.
Macedonian artillery is elevated, turning the height of Gaza into a disadvantage.
Battis has provisioned the city for a long siege, betting on the desert's harshness.
Logistics lines from the north ensure the besiegers remain fed in the wasteland.
Two empires collide at the edge of the Egyptian wilderness.
The defenders strike first, launching a desperate sortie to destroy the siege towers. Leading from the front, the king rallies his guard to save the machinery.
A catapult stone finds its mark, seriously wounding the Macedonian leader.
Though injured, the king's resolve hardens. The siege continues unabated.
A colossal ring of earth now entombs the city, negating its natural advantage.
Beneath the surface, sappers work to undermine the very foundations of the city. The earth gives way, and the impregnable walls of Gaza finally shatter. The first assault is repelled as the defenders fight with the strength of despair.
3 times the Macedonians charge, and 3 times they are driven back. On the 4th attempt, the breach is taken. The Macedonians pour into the city.
The battle shifts to the narrow streets, where every house becomes a fortress. In the heart of the city, the governor makes his final, defiant stand. Gaza falls. The resistance that delayed the king for 2 months is broken. The governor is brought before the king, still refusing to acknowledge his conqueror. In a grim tribute to Achilles, the king orders Battis dragged beneath the walls. The old Gaza is razed. A new Macedonian outpost takes its place. With Gaza conquered, the path to the Nile lies open and undefended. In 331 BCE, the fate of Asia is decided on the plains of Gaugamela. The Persian king prepares the ground to favor his scythed chariots. Rejecting a night attack, the king chooses to win by daylight.
The Persian army spends the night under arms, fearing a surprise assault.
As dawn breaks, the sheer scale of the Persian host is revealed. The Macedonian phalanx presents a wall of impenetrable long spears.
200 scythed chariots stand ready to tear through the Macedonian lines.
Small war elephants provide a psychological edge for the Persian king. The king leads his elite companion cavalry on the right wing.
Heavy-armored Bactrian horsemen form the backbone of the Persian left.
The Macedonians begin a strange, diagonal march toward the right.
The Persians shift to mirror the Macedonian movement, stretching their line.
A fierce skirmish erupts on the extreme right as both sides vied for position. Light infantry move into position to face the impending chariot charge.
The Persian king launches his chariots to break the Macedonian phalanx. A rain of missiles takes a heavy toll on the charging horses. The infantry opens their ranks, rendering the scythed chariots useless. In the rear, the remaining chariots are quickly overwhelmed.
A fatal gap opens in the Persian enter as they overextend. The king forms a massive wedge for the decisive strike.
The Macedonian king leads the charge directly toward his rival.
The Persian immortals fight desperately to protect their sovereign. A spear narrowly misses the Persian king, killing his driver.
Fearing capture, the Persian king turns and flees the battle.
On the left wing, the Macedonian general is nearly overwhelmed.
Persian cavalry break through a gap in the Macedonian line.
Persian raiders reach the Macedonian camp in search of the royal family.
The Macedonian reserve line turns back to save the camp.
The king is called back from the pursuit to save his army.
The Macedonian cavalry strikes the Persian flank in a final blow.
The remaining Persian forces break and flee across the plain.
The sun peaks over a field of total Macedonian victory. The pursuit continues as the king hunts for his fallen rival. The wealth of the Persian Empire falls into Macedonian hands. Betrayed by his own, the last king of Persia is found dead. Macedonian losses were remarkably low for a battle of this scale. Tens of thousands of Persians fell in the desperate defense of their empire.
The Macedonian king enters Babylon as the new master of Asia.
The ancient capital of Persepolis falls, signaling the end of an era. A new empire is born from the dust of Gaugamela. In the heart of winter, the Macedonian king enters the treacherous Zagros Mountains.
After seizing Susa, the invasion force splits to bypass the formidable mountain terrain. At the gates of Persis, the satrap prepares a desperate defense. Unaware of the trap ahead, the vanguard enters the narrowest corridor. Victory at Gaugamela left the heart of the empire exposed to the conqueror. The satrap of Persis gathers his remaining elite to block the path. The geography offers a perfect choke point, known historically as the Persian Thermopylae.
Overconfidence leads the king to neglect scouting the high ground ahead.
The Macedonian phalanx is a wall of bronze and ash wood. Defending their home province, the Persian guards wait in silence.
Artillery and gravity are the satrap's most lethal weapons today.
Thousands of troops are packed into a corridor only meters wide. Alongside the satrap, his sister commands a portion of the defense.
Leading from the front, the king expects another swift victory. A trap is sprung as mountainside boulders rain upon the vanguard.
Ensnared in a kill zone, the professional army faces total disorder.
The defenders descend to finish what the stones began.
A panicked withdrawal is nearly impossible in the suffocating terrain.
For the first time, the king is forced to retreat.
A local guide reveals a hidden path to outflank the satrap.
Under the cover of night, an elite force scales the ridges. At dawn, the hunters find themselves becoming the hunted.
The frontal assault begins as a diversion for the pincer.
The surprise attack from the rear shatters the Persian defense.
Trapped in their own fortress, the defenders fight on two fronts.
The satrap leads one final charge against the Macedonian pincer.
The gates are forced open, and the road to Persepolis lies clear.
With the final obstacle removed, the Macedonians race for the capital.
The ceremonial heart of Persia falls to the foreign king.
The echoes of the Persian Thermopylae remain etched in these stones. In the far reaches of Central Asia, a new frontier awaits the Macedonian king.
The army reaches the Seir Daria, the boundary of the known world.
Across the water, the nomads taunt the invaders, confident the river will protect them.
The king plans a crossing that will defy nomadic tradition.
Rebellion erupts in Sogdia. The army is trapped between rebels and nomads.
He founds Alexandria the furthest, a bastion to secure the northern gate. To cross the wide river, the army prepares rafts of stuffed skins.
Thousands of miles from home, the Macedonian logistics remain unbroken.
The phalanx, a forest of pikes that has conquered the Persian Empire. The Scythians are masters of the bow, firing with lethal precision from horseback.
Secret weapons, large catapults capable of outranging any nomadic bow. The king's personal guard, the shock force that breaks enemy lines.
Expert skirmishers provide the vital screen for the river crossing.
Chieftain Satraces believes the wide Jaxartes is an impassable wall.
The barrage begins. A storm of bolts flies across the river.
A bolt strikes a nomad leader. Their sense of safety is shattered.
Under the cover of artillery, the first wave enters the water.
The beachhead is established. Skirmishers clear the way for the heavy forces. The king lands. The full weight of the army now crosses.
A lone battalion is sent forward, a calculated sacrifice to draw the enemy.
The nomads take the bait, surrounding the vanguard in their traditional circle.
The main force advances. The trap is about to close.
Cavalry wings sweep around. The nomads find themselves caught in a vice.
Trapped between pikes and horses, the nomadic mobility is neutralized. The coordinated assault of infantry and archers decimes the nomad ranks.
The Scythian army breaks. The pursuit begins across the endless horizon.
The king falls ill from the heat. The pursuit is called off. The steppe is silent. 1,200 nomads remain on the field. 160 Macedonians are lost in the far north. The Scythians sue for peace. The frontier is secured without further blood. The city stands as a final marker, the edge of an empire.
Subscribe and comment the next battle you want featured.
In the rugged mountains of Central Asia, the Macedonian king faces his most vertical challenge.
The Sogdian Rock stands as an impregnable natural fortress against the invading forces.
The Macedonian army settles at the base, preparing for a siege unlike any other.
The defenders mock the king, claiming he needs winged soldiers to capture the heights. Bactria and Sogdiana remain the final pockets of resistance against the Macedonian expansion.
The nobleman Oxyartes retreats to the rock, believing it to be beyond reach.
The king refuses to retreat, seeking a way to prove the impossible possible.
Winter weather and deep snow threaten to stall the Macedonian campaign.
The Macedonian infantry is the finest in the world, but pikes are useless against cliffs.
The defenders rely on the terrain, well stocked with food and winter supplies. The king calls for volunteers with climbing experience, offering massive rewards for success.
Confident in their 2-year supply of food, the Sogdians settle in for a long siege.
Using iron tent pegs as pittons, the Macedonians adapt their camp gear for climbing.
Archery fire creates a diversion, drawing the defenders' attention to the main gates.
As night falls, the 300 begin their perilous journey up the sheerest cliff. 30 men lose their footing in the treacherous ice, vanishing into the abyss.
The survivors press on, driven by the king's promise and their own discipline.
Before dawn, the winged soldiers finally reach the summit, undetected by the guards.
The signal is given. The king's winged soldiers have arrived.
The herald calls out to the defenders, telling them to look behind them. Panic spreads through the garrison as they realize their vertical advantage is gone.
The impossible ascent breaks the defenders' will to resist.
The garrison surrenders, and the fortress of the rock is handed over.
The king meets the conquered noble, but the outcome of this siege is unexpected. The survivors are showered with riches, their bravery immortalized in the king's annals.
To unify the region, the king takes Roxana as his bride, ending the revolt.
The rock remains a Macedonian stronghold, securing the frontier of the empire.
With Sogdiana pacified, the army turns its eyes toward the Indus River.
The siege remain one of history's most daring feats of mountain warfare. The Macedonian campaign
reaches the banks of the Hydaspes River in ancient India. The expeditionary force halts at the water's edge, facing a formidable barrier. Across the churning currents, the Indian king prepares his defense with war elephants.
Monsoon rains flood the valley, making any river crossing a perilous gamble. The commander studies the terrain, seeking a way to bypass the waiting elephants. A local alliance provides the Macedonian forces with vital supplies and intelligence.
8 years of conquest have brought the Hellenic world to the edge of India.
The Kaurava ruler refuses to submit, rallying his kingdom to face the invaders.
Engineers prepare the fleet, utilizing every available material for the coming assault. Constant night feints exhaust the defenders, masking the true point of attack. The phalanx is a forest of pikes, designed for frontal dominance.
Living fortresses, the war elephants serve as the centerpiece of the Indian defense. Indian archers wield powerful bows, though the mud threatens their stability.
The elite heavy cavalry is the commander's primary weapon for flanking maneuvers.
Mercenary horse archers provide the speed and range needed for harassment.
Heavy chariots carry multiple warriors, but struggle in the monsoon-soaked soil. Logistics remain the backbone of the campaign, sustaining thousands far from home.
The river is at its most violent, creating a natural fortress for the defenders. Under the cover of a storm, a strike force marches to a secret crossing.
The crossing begins in total darkness as the storm masks the sound of oars. A navigational error reveals a second channel, forcing the men back into the water.
Infantry struggle through the deep currents to reach the shore before being spotted.
The landing is secured, but the element of surprise is fading fast.
The Indian king's son leads a vanguard to intercept the crossing force.
The heavy chariots falter, immobilized by the rain-soaked soil of the plain.
The vanguard is crushed, and the Indian king's son falls in battle. The main Indian army deploys, forming a wall of muscle and ivory.
The invaders align their pikes, preparing for the most difficult fight of the campaign. Horse archers open the engagement, softening the Indian flank with constant fire.
A concentrated cavalry strike aims to shatter the enemy's left wing.
A secondary cavalry force circles around, threatening the Indian rear and flanks. The elephants charge, smashing into the rigid lines of the Macedonian infantry. The phalanx suffers as the war elephants trample through the veteran lines. Skirmishers target the handlers, causing the great beasts to lose their direction. Panicked elephants turn on their O, crushing the Indian infantry in their path. The encirclement is complete, trapping the remnants of the Kaurava forces.
The Indian king fights on, a final pillar of resistance on his mount. The two kings meet, concluding the battle with a rare display of mutual respect.
The cost of victory is high, leaving the valley floor covered in wreckage.
The victorious army counts its losses, weary from years of constant warfare.
At the hyphasis, the soldiers refuse to go further, ending the eastward march.
The Battle of the Hydaspes leaves a lasting bridge between two great civilizations.